And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Steve Farrell, who lived the good life of leading high-tech growth companies in Silicon Valley, but left when he felt a calling to play an active role in creating a consciousness movement that could help people across the globe awaken to their deeper self and the interconnectedness and the oneness of everything in the universe. Steve, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Jeff, thanks so much for having me. Been looking forward to being on your program.
Well, we're excited to have you. Now, Steve, can you tell us more about who you were before this metamorphosis and what you learned from pursuing the American dream?
You bet, Jeff. So, as you know, I came out with a book actually in May that describes this 50-plus year journey where, and my journey really has got three parts. So the first part is just growing up with a single divorced mom, six sibling in a little 1,300 square foot home, probably like a lot of your listeners. So then the second part is the pretty incredible thing where I land out in Silicon Valley and I'm in the center of wealth creation because I start a couple of companies right as the internet is being born, and we catch the wave. We grow two companies from zero used furniture, two guys, to 75 million in revenue. And the second one, the first one, it took us 10 years. The second one, we got to 75 million in revenue in 2 years. And that then invited me into that center of wealth creation crowd, their business associations, where people like Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, was in my 60-person chapter, and other really amazing, astounding business leaders like that. That was when I was in the private jet crowd. So, and then while that was going on, I was called to what we call in Humanities Team conscious living. And it's the thing, Jeff, I'm thinking really the planet is being called to now as we look at this drumbeat of all this stuff going on out in the world, people feeling anxiety that sometimes goes to depression and disempowerment and for extreme weather and all these things that have people not feeling so great. So conscious living is the remedy to that. So in my nonprofit then, it's called Humanities Team. What we do is support people on their conscious journey. But it started out with me finding my own conscious journey, going through my own personal awakening of who am I really? Why am I here? What's my invitation here in life? Things like that. And now and of course that journey is never ending. So I'm still on that journey, but we're supporting people at all levels on that journey now. So yeah, that's kind of the arc of this whole thing. A guy, 12 years old, long hair, even hitchhiking around the country, and going, wow, I want to have more of a life than just sort of long hair and smoking dope. And so I really sort of cleaned myself up and then went on to this amazing journey that I'm living now.
What was the actual event that was the catalyst to make this change?
So the actual event was in the mid 1990s. I was there running that first company. It was called ENS. We were designing and installing and supporting these big data networks for organizations like The Gap and Esprit and big global companies that had campuses all over the world. And as you can imagine, if you went from used furniture and two guys in a little suite to 75 million in revenue, 175 people, wow, you kind of hit that hyperbolic curve. So I was living that when my mother and my sister reached out to me and said, Steve, you have to read a book that just came out called Conversations with God, Book 1. Neil Donald Walsch is the author. I said, I don't really have time to read books. And they said, well, it's going to change your whole life. And I said, well, I don't want my, I'm actually real happy with my whole life. I don't know that I want my whole life to change. Well, I read the book and boy, my life actually did change. This was kind of my wake up thing. I'll call it, the God or divine of my understanding that on some level I've been talking to my whole life, that is benevolent, by the way, not malevolent. So, all loving, all supporting, all of these things, that God was speaking through this book. So I recognized that God and trusted it. And I lost over a period of years I lost my passion for just being a serial entrepreneur, because it felt like I was playing a kid's game of, with everything going on in the world, all the challenges out there, to just be starting companies where I get great top line and bottom line growth and my shareholders are enriched seemed like a kind of a silly idea. And so, yeah, I embraced actually a whole new self-identity, really. So, because it was one day in particular where I was looking out my window and I decided, okay, I am one of two things, and the both can't exist at the same time. So I'm either primarily my dad and mother's son, Steve Farrell, in this body, and then it goes to bones and dust, 6 feet under, or I'm primarily was delivered. My parents were just an airplane or terminal, so to speak, delivering me to the planet. But I came from this universal consciousness, this oneness. We call it the divine in Humanities Team, though my science friends calls it universe and cosmos. And in the second definition, we have all the properties, the Rumi quote, the whole ocean in a drop. We have the properties of source from which we come, which includes everlasting life, but much, much more. And so in that night, I decided I'm primarily the second one. I'm primarily an emanation of source, and not just me. Every listener here, you, Jeff, the Earth herself, all of what's out in the cosmos and universe, it's all an emanation of the one. And that's what I decided. And then the ground started shifting under me when I made that decision. It was like this was a whole new reality I was living into.
Do you think when you were in this entrepreneurial world that you won the game, or had it become an addiction that now, okay, you have these two companies, but that's not enough. You got to do another one, and it never ends?
Yeah, so this was the thing that I was feeling into, and in the mid and late 1990s is what exactly is my calling now. So what this brings me to is one of the things that I have done, which has set me on this amazing journey with my life, is I have listened to that still small voice. Some call it your soul's calling, and I've ignored the worldly noise. So which comes from well-meaning people, your family, friends, coworkers that are saying, don't do that, I tell the story, in my book. And by the way, these people love me. They were well-meaning. I mean, I don't have any problem with them coming to me the way they did. Don't move out to San Francisco after college. You don't know anybody. Don't leave IBM. You've got a very safe job. What are you doing? Going into a little executive suite with another guy in used furniture. You're throwing your life away. And then the big one, when they thought I was burning my lottery ticket, where I had these two companies that went to the stars, and I'm meeting all the time with these amazing center of wealth creation people in Silicon Valley. And I say, I have to leave this organization. I have to leave Silicon Valley. I need to set out on more of a spiritual path here. That's what I'm being called to. And people thought I'd lost my mind. I was jumping off a cliff without a parachute. And they begged me not to do it. Steve, hang in there. You're just going through midlife crisis or something. This is why it's so important. And here, directly addressing your listeners. So we listen to our still small voice, because, this thing that said, when you're given a vision, which is that still small voice, you're always given provision. So, which means that you'll be supported if you follow that vision. And this is the thing I've done against all of the suggestions and good intentions of people. I've really stayed with what I knew to be mine. And where we do that, we are led to an incredible life. We all of us, and the divine does not play favorites. Okay, that's part of what I understand on this journey. There's no favorites that are played. And even if you look back to Buddha and Jesus, this is what they were saying too, right? So these things and more you'll do, and so on. It's really a universal law. One day we'll uncover the science of all of this better than we have so far, where we understand that it's really just how well we play into that bigger self, where we leave that smaller self, where we're supporting the world around us. And then it's totally a function. There's a boomerang effect that goes with that. And we have all of this really neat, cool stuff happen to us where we follow that big agenda, where we operate as our bigger self. And it happens uniformly for everybody and anybody that does so.
Earlier, you mentioned conscious living. And to me, that's kind of a generalized term. How do you define that?
So it's one of the reasons I wanted to be on your program, Jeff, because conscious living is where there's a lot of paranormal phenomena, because science hasn't totally got it in ink yet. It's more in process. So for example, the Nobel Prize for Physics here in October last year was for entanglement. Okay, look up entanglement in the dictionary. Entanglement is where you've got two things that can be on opposite sides of the universe. There's no physical connection whatsoever, and they're deeply affecting each other. Well, the science we grew up with, in grade school, high school, college, doesn't account for that. There's no, it's like that wasn't part of what we were taught. So, and there's science that is surfacing all over the place right now, like this, that's explaining, quantum physics in particular, that's explaining a deeply interdependent, interconnected universe, actually a universe that's one. You might call it a universal consciousness animating all of life. So, which is one of the premise of my book. That's actually the key premise. So conscious living is where we're understanding the new science, which is affirming what mystics shared back into antiquity, and also other scientists, again, Nobel Prize winning scientists, many of the leaders back to antiquity, they've essentially been sharing, that there's no plural in consciousness. There is a universal consciousness animating all of life, and we're actually all just a point of presence, you could call it, or a part of that domain that is this universal consciousness, or loving presence, or intelligence. There are lots of words we could put around that, but we're all actually pinpoints on that, or you could also call it waves on an ocean. So when we live into that, when we live into this notion that there's a universal consciousness animating all of life, that's where our creativity comes from, imagination, all of these things, where we also live into our bigger self, because we understand we're a wave under this ocean. We move the fence posts out from just our family, me, my wife, and my two kids, to the whole of, in our case, the earth. There's not much we're going to do with the universe, but with the earth. So, and that's when we hear that still small voice, where there's a station that we're called to, Jeff, just like you were called to create this JeffMara podcast. I was called to launch Humanities Team with Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote the Conversations with God books. We're actually called to something. And then we start supporting the world around us. And then the third premise of the book is, the more we give ourselves away, the better we feel. So we're actually designed as part of this whole universal consciousness that is animating all of life. The sooner we figure that out, the sooner we live into it, the sooner all of these benefits accrue to us. And we walk around with a smile on our face of, I know why I'm here. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing while I'm here, and I'm going to live an amazing life.
If you don't mind going down the consciousness rabbit hole, do you feel that we are a consciousness that's separate from our body, or do you think also that our consciousness manifests our body?
What I believe is our body is just an extension of our wave that is onto the ocean. So what the way mystics explain it, also the Conversations with God series explains it, and even some of my scientist friends, is there's the non-physical realm, right? We know that from the near-death experience, the mediums, right? They're all describing something very similar. What happens, they say, in the non-physical realm is, at some point in time, we say, hey, I'm just a candle in the sun here. It's like, there's nothing but pure love and light here. I want to be the light. I want to express it, not just a candle with a jillion other candles. I'd like to be that. And so, boom, we embody, we physicalize, we come into a life. There's actually more that we actually have paint and an easel and paintboard and things. We can actually even put some of the things into that life that we want, in my understanding. And then we're born into the world. Well, in this world, we're not a candle under the sun. There's a lot of darkness here. There's a great deal of challenge, people that are grieving, people having challenging times. So where we awaken to this bigger self. I'm a wave under the ocean. I'm actually a part of the light. I'm an emanation of the one. And we live that out. And we don't have to be perfect, because none of us are. We don't have to be excellent all the time, because none of us are, but we just do our best. That's all. We're going to do our best to live this out. And where we do that, and where we are our best, bring our best self to every day, then we start feeling great. And in my understanding, we really self-actualize. We kind of understand why we came, we live into it, and then just all of the gratification comes in. So consciousness is basically the who we are. It's a spiritual universe. Spiritual universe means that everything is energy. We've all heard that. Everything is energy means that we set our vibration point. It can be really low, where we don't understand this, and we just live on the roller coaster of life of, moon must be in retrograde today, not feeling good. Tomorrow's a good day, today's a bad day, just a roller coaster. But once we understand how consciousness works, it's energetic. There's a vibration point. We start setting that vibration point by creating a daily practice that anchors us throughout our day, keeping us in good energy. We're kind of a raft floating above that whole roller coaster of life. Then again, we live into the deliciousness of life. So we're consciousness, but when we decide that we want to physicalize and come down, then we're given a body. It becomes an extension of our consciousness, and then we lose the body. And as we know from our friends who are NDE and mediums, we've all embodied hundreds or if not thousands of times here in the course of our lifetime. The everlasting life is our feature.
Do you think we should stop using the word death and use the word transition instead?
I do. In my home, that's what we do. I've got 2 kids and my wife, and we don't use the word death. It's scary for people, this notion that we just fall over, we die, we're gone, bones and dust, 6 feet under. We know, and again, we were talking before the program a little bit, Jeff, and I was sharing, we also, my nonprofit Humanities Team has a conscious streaming platform. So we have hundreds of these video trainings. Well, many of the video trainings are from the near-death experience people and the mediums that are training you, actually, so you can yourself be in touch with your, in my case, my sister, who in 1983 passed, or my dad, who passed, transitioned 10 years ago, or my grandmother, who came in very unexpectedly. I didn't call her, and I just had an issue that I brought to my medium practice, and bam, my grandmother showed up. Very surprising, with some things she wanted me to talk to my wife about. So we lift the veil here as we live consciously. That's one of the dimensions of this. We understand there's physical and non-physical life, and we live into it and understand it changes your life completely, where we understand that we're here actually for a very, very small chapter of our everlasting life. That's completely different than, this is why I was telling you about that decision I made in my townhouse looking out my window, where we think our whole life is this one embodiment and better get it done, then the whole American dream thing happens of, well, if I only got one shot, let me go out and just get all of what I can get, build my castle and just kind of put up the fence posts, and me and my family are going to live the dream, and I hope the world can be okay, But if we understand this new science and what the mystics shared back to antiquity, know that we're a part of universal consciousness, and we're here for this teeny chapter, then we start asking ourselves, am I now living into the fullness of what my opportunity is in this embodiment? Is there more that I'm being called to? Is there more I could do that can help, people and the planet around me? So yeah, just huge, where we go through enough education, because it doesn't, it didn't just come to me. I had to go through a significant amount of education to finally get to the point where I said, why do I use this word death? This is the silliest thing in the world.
You mentioned the American dream, and your book is called New Universal Dream. What's the difference between the two?
So the American dream has some really beautiful features, which we want for everybody on the planet. And when we think of the American dream, we think of equal opportunity, equal education, education afforded to all people so they have a chance to really live a good life. That's beautiful. And my God, don't we want that for the entire planet? So that I in no way want to denigrate just the American dream. Now, unfortunately, what happens and happens today, quite frequently is once we climb those ladders and get a great education and so on, then we want to keep climbing. And then fame and fortune and power become our interest. So, and as I mentioned, I had a front row seat right there in Silicon Valley. The guy that runs the largest real estate equity trust in the whole world, it's called Prologis. He was a friend of mine in that business chapter that I was in. A guy named Hamid Moghadam, beautiful, brilliant guy. Now, what happens then is, in a way, we've won the lottery ticket once our business takes off like that, and we're minting money, I'll call it. So, because you're growing your top line, you're growing your bottom line, and what happens is as soon as you get to 500 million in revenue, you celebrate for 48 hours, but well, let's get a billion, right? Then you celebrate for 48 hours, and then now it's 2 billion. So guess what's happening? This is what I could see from my front row seat, from that whole private jet crowd, is there's all of this pressure on your relationships because you're putting a great deal of focus on minting that money, keeping that going. So with your partner, with your kids, with your best friends, with your coworkers, there's a lot of tension, a lot of stress. And we've all read about people even taking their own lives, right, that are at their center of this wealth creation. So that part of the American dream is very challenging for the people involved. And this is what's creating all this craziness out in the world, is where we think we only have one life and where we want to go into those upper rungs of the ladder of American dream and just mint money. It's not good for the planet. We're just many of these businesses aren't even producing something of value. GMOs, media companies that are telling lies. We all know there are lots of businesses that aren't really producing real value. So those upper rungs of the American dream are almost like a cancer for the individual and the business. And this is what I got to see by being there in the Valley. It's part of why I wrote the book, because most people don't get to experience that, where they're with that crowd, living with that crowd. I lived with the crowd. I saw it. And there were some that had great family lives, but there were many more where, wow, some of the dysfunctional things going on, not good. Wouldn't want to live into those things. So then the new universal dream, which is what I called my book, the new universal dream is where we're living into these things we're talking about, conscious living. We've lifted the veil. We understand why we came into the physical realm. We understand how we can live into our bigger self. We understand how to create a daily practice where we anchor ourselves in this energy and float like a raft, as I say, above the roller coaster, all of these kinds of features. So we're living into then this highly evolved universe. We're a young civilization here on the earth. We're just kind of growing into this larger self. The late Barbara Marx Hubbard used to say, we are Homo sapien now, which is what scientists call us too. And she says, we're growing into Homo universalis. Homo universalis. So, and as that name implies, that we're growing into where we understand we're kind of a cell, so to speak, or a cell in a superorganism, or a wave in an ocean. I'm saying the same thing. We're part of a larger scheme. And if we don't believe this now, and we're all given freedom to live our life the way we want to, that's fine, because we can all make the decision we want. But I promise you, in the after, we're all gonna, we're going to transition, every one of us. And when we transition and go back, I know from my medium friends and my NDE friends, then that bigger self is what we're going to live into. It's all there is. We're just a candle under the sun. It's pure love and light. That's what it is. So the invitation in the new universal dream is why kind of put our ladder, so to speak, against a false wall, a false ultimate reality, the old American dream that doesn't serve you. Why not move our ladder to this other understanding, what we call conscious living, where we really get it? We educate ourselves, first step. Second step, we then embody and express what we've learned, right? Why would you educate yourself and not live into it? That's like going to a 3-star restaurant and they set the table with this beautiful food and you don't eat it. Right? So after we educate ourselves, we always want to embody and express those teachings, right? And then the third step is what we're doing here now, Jeff, you and me, where we're engaging others. We've found it. We're living into it. And it's not like we're at some destination, because as I was saying earlier, there is no end destination. It's just a spiral staircase that you just keep climbing into ever and ever more sublime experiences. That's what we're all doing. And I think that's the real invitation here.
Can you share with us your own practices that you use to raise your frequency?
I can. So I've mentioned daily practices that anchor us throughout the day. So what those are for me, there are two forms of daily practice. This changes again for me over time. I don't have any one way that I keep coming back to. It's a constant process of feeling into what's serving me now as I'm growing into my fuller self. So what I do now, most of the time in that daily practice, which I usually do 3 times a day, but actually, what I mean by that is I spend some dedicated time 3 times a day. But throughout the day, I actually carry this with me. So it's really a part of my whole day. It's just that I'm deeper because I'm totally dedicated about 3 times a day. And what I'm doing is, one, it's intentional. I keep coming back to themes here. Bigger self, living into bigger self. I'm designed as part of that. The more I give of myself, or the more I'm in service, the better I feel. So part of it is intentional, of just that bigger self, where I'm going into a deep meditation and feeling into that. Part of it goes beyond intentional. It's metaphysical. So people like Joe Dispenza teaches the metaphysical. Metaphysical actually goes all the way back to Jesus's time, maybe before, but he said, "It's done unto you as you believe." That's in simple terms, that's what metaphysical is. It's beyond intentional. What we're doing in the metaphysical, when we do this in our meditation process, is we're actually feeling into a future where the things we're talking about here, Jeff, where people have gone through an awakening experience because it's going to help them evolve. It's going to help them be happier and more healthy. So where I'm feeling into even people with emotional and mental disturbance, that through vitamin and minerals, they can come back into a more normal life. I'm feeling into what we call the new spirituality in Humanities Team. The new spirituality is this universal consciousness animating all of life. We're spiritual beings, where we really deeply understand that, where our actions throughout the day reflect this spiritual presence of which we are. So in my daily practice, beyond intention, into metaphysical, where I'm actually feeling into these things, and then just seeing the whole of the earth, the 8 billion people here, where we've gone through awakening, where we know we're one with this body, where we're living into our spirituality, where conscious living is becoming manifest. We actually have a mission in Humanities Team: make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. That's in 17 years. Big lift, which is why we have the whole education platform. So most of my daily practice is that, where I'm actually going out, feeling it. Very importantly, I'm not just feeling it in the future, I'm feeling the connection from the future back to now. So it's not a magic wave my wand thing. It's more of, okay, this is what's going to happen, what is happening now on the earth. And now I can see the fullness of it. And that is out in the future of the earth, if that makes sense. So that's most of what the daily practice is. There's another part of the daily practice where I mentioned I work with mediums. So mediums teach you how to be in touch with loved ones, so that you can go in your daily practice and reach out. You've got a real complex challenge. There's something troubling, and you can reach out to family members and guides and say, I need help with something. Here it is. And then and through training, I use Suzanne Gieseman's Bless Me method. We can go into that whole ethereal space where, in my case, my sister who passed in 1983, my dad who passed 10 years ago, my grandmother, angels and guides, will be present and will respond to the question that I have. So I'll bring that in when I'm dealing with something very challenging and I'm wanting to lift the veil and get advice from the afterlife.
So are you saying that you are also a medium?
I mean, we all are actually. So, and the mediums, James Von Prague, Suzanne Giesman, Karen Noe. So these are just three, but Google them, go to their YouTube channel and watch what they say, watch a few of their videos. They'll all tell you that we're all actually born with this ability. They say it's like playing a piano. Most of us don't play the piano. But if we want to take the time to learn it and practice, all of us can. Mediumship is the same thing. We can all, we actually all have that faculty. It would be called paranormal. But, as what I was saying earlier is science is just in the process of proving all kinds of things. So we want to study the paranormal because there's a whole lot of stuff that's real, it's ultimate reality. Science just hasn't yet defined it. One of my science friends was just telling me, he said, Steve, spirituality is just what science hasn't yet gotten to. I mean, isn't that kind of neat? It's not yet fact. Instead, it's part of our faith and it's not fact, but science will get to it. In time, all of spirituality will be well understood in science.
Have you had any other paranormal experiences like seeing UFOs, orbs, or encountering entities?
All of the above, yeah. So UFOs, when I was 11 or 12, so in 1969, 1970, probably more like 69, I had a paper out with my brother, my older brother, Kevin. He actually had the paper out and I'd help him. He'd pay me 50 cents to go out and deliver papers with him on a Sunday morning, get up at 4:30 and deliver till 7. We were together one morning walking around the neighborhood, delivering our papers, and there was a UFO just right in the sky above us in the neighborhood. It was early in the morning, just as sun up. Maybe observing us because it was just right there. I don't know, 500 to 1,000 feet out, just kind of spinning, stationary spinning, almost like it was looking down on us, observing us, because we were the only ones that we could see that was awake at that time. And it just sat there stationary. I'm not sure how long, because my brother and I were spellbound. We were like, oh my God, what the heck is this? Except that we knew what it was, because UFOs always have this shape of a saucer. And then, just like that, it disappeared into the woods. There were just as many people share, once it moves, it can move at unbelievable speeds. And it wasn't until much later in my life that I thought, my God, I wonder how something could move that fast and not squish all life that was in it. Because you can't, the law of our law of physics would say something moving that fast from stationary to out of sight. How could life exist? So clearly that's part of, science that we don't understand yet. So that was one, but in my house, I've got an incredible picture of an angel that was taken here in my son's room one night, a perfect picture of an angel, orbs. So, and these things, again, paranormal, it's just science is really just getting around to understanding this whole thing where basically, we have the non-physical realm that we've all heard the stories, where the penny drops in the lane, the butterfly lands, the bird that our mother loved is there, all of these things, spirit animals, right? They're things all the time that are happening. We want to just dismiss them because of the way we grew up of, that penny, who knows, somebody around the corner must have thrown that darn thing down the aisle. But, our medium friends say, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't dismiss it. Because if you do, it'll stop happening. My mother, or my sister, this my wife actually, her mother passed some number of years ago. And my wife had a huge soul relationship with her mother, very close, best friend her whole life. And of course, very traumatic. Now, one night, in the middle of the night, there was a Carpenter's song that starts playing in her head. She never had a song playing in her head. It was about the universe and looking down on you and love is who you are and these things, a Carpenter's song. And Stephanie was like, oh my God, what the heck is this? And then she realized this is absolutely my mother. Her name was Artie. It was so profound. I actually framed it and put the lyrics in a picture and a picture of her and her mom. And we've got it up in our room so she can remember that forever. It was clearly her mom coming to her and talking to her. And then over the months that followed, we'd be driving around and a license plate on a car would pull ahead of us that would say Artie. These things can happen from the non-physical realm. Medium share, this kind of stuff can happen. And if you acknowledge it and even say, thank you, hey, Artie, wow, that was cool. Thank you for coming to me, and it really lifted my day. It will then invite them to do more of it. So just to listeners, don't push these things away and dismiss them. Science is in the process of really proving all of this now. And you want more of these things from loved ones, not less.
Back in 2003, you created Humanities Team with Neil Donald Walsh. What was your vision for that?
So that was 20 years ago, June 2003, Wilsonville, Oregon. And Neil Donald Walsh, of course, the author of the 9 Conversations with God books. And so the spring of that year, in the spring of 2003, he invited 20 people to his home there in Ashland, Oregon. And I was one of the 20. And he said there on Friday night, it was a weekend planning session. He said, what I'm called to do is to create an organization, actually a global undertaking or movement that's going to be very narrow and deep. Its whole function is going to be to awaken us to oneness, is what we called it then, awakening the world to oneness. Oneness is this whole, what I've said is wave under the ocean or cell under the superorganism or body, where we understand, that we're one with our creator. And he said the reason that he wanted to do that is because in many ways, it's kind of the first domino. This is kind of an interesting way to look at it, but where we understand this, that we have all the properties of source, of the divine, of the universe, and we're living into this everlasting life and so on, it does actually remedy all the stuff going on out in the world. We've actually created a whole initiative around this because in today's world where so many people are challenged individually and collectively, people need to understand that there's a way, a remedy, a way to really live a fuller life. And then when enough of us come together and live this way, the Malcolm Gladwell tipping point thing happens, boom, microcosm, macrocosm, right? The world shifts. So that was the objective there. As Neil explained it that Friday night in the spring of 2003, that might not sound so radical today. Here we are in 2023, but it was radical then. And a third of the group didn't even come back Saturday morning because it was like terrifying, the thought of throwing in, and starting something where we're awakening oneness with that kind of definition in the world. Candidly, I was terrified too, except that I'd already lost most of my friends, and had left the business association I'd shared, because I told my friends, hey, I'm more on a spiritual path. What can I benefit you, in business terms, as I'm more on a spiritual path. So it was frightening. I ended up being the only one that threw in with Neil and helped him launch Humanities Team that day or weekend in June 2003. And here we are over 20 years later, and we've grown into the largest global nonprofit in transformational education. That was our particular calling, to educate people. Education is always the key to social change. So, and one of the questions you brought in that I'm guessing people are still scratching their head over here, Jeff, is this conscious living thing. Okay, I kind of get it, but I'd like to understand it more in a deeper way. And does it have business application? All these kinds of things. And that's what we do. So we create hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of video trainings and live programs on this Humanities Stream Plus, our conscious streaming platform. And we're nonprofit, so we're always getting the price down, the monthly price, the annual price. And we even have a 1-for-1 where we give away a free subscription for every paid subscription, because our whole mission as a nonprofit is conscious living, make it pervasive in the world in 17 years. So we even just started translating in 77 languages our new programs. So Like we have 67 country coordinators now. Our country coordinator in South Africa was going through all the languages in Africa, and he says, "Wow, you got 2/3 of them right there," and that's saying a lot in Africa because there's so many languages down there. So, yeah, that's the function and purpose of Humanities Team. We used to say awaken the world to oneness. Now we say make conscious living pervasive worldwide by 2040. Conscious living speaks to people a little better than the notion oneness for some people is kind of ambiguous, ethereal of what does this mean and how would I do it anyway? So we frame it a little different, but it's the same thing.
Well, that's great. I was going to ask you, what is your time frame, but you went ahead and answered it for me, and that's 2040, right?
2040, yeah, in 17 years.
That's that global tipping point that you're trying to reach.
Yes, and there's science. We've come back to science a few times. One of the things I was with a guy named Nassim Harriman, who started the International Space Federation. You can Google him. He's disclosing research now around this whole unified physics thing that says everything, what we've come back to a few times, that everything from protons and atoms, quantum scale, to cosmological objects, galaxies, everything physical and non-physical is actually one thing. It's one super organism, one body, and he's got the equations and the math that prove that. And then he even in his science shares how we can create machines that create free energy for propulsion and gravity locations where we can control gravity. And so I'm not going to try and get to all of what he's disclosing in his research now, but Google him, International Space Federation, Nassim Harriman, and follow his good work, because all of the things I'm talking about are affirmed by his research and other scientists. He's just one.
Why do you believe human genetics are predisposed to service?
So my book, the three premise, which you could also call the three promises in this, which is telling you, I'm not just thinking. I mean, I feel like my job is to just tell the truth as I understand it. So that first premise, a universal consciousness animating all life. The second premise, that we're actually designed as part of that super organism. We're cells in this body of universe, of cosmos, or we can just call it the world around us, which is mostly our concern. And then the third premise, the more we give ourselves away, the better we feel. Now this one, almost as cliche. I'm sure your listeners have heard this many times. But in the book, I explain it in terms of how it's worked for me. I also explain it in terms of how it's not working in Silicon Valley, where we're not really embracing these truths, where our lives we have all the financial wealth in the world, but our lives are pretty lousy or pretty challenged. And then I share many stories throughout the book. One of them is a guy named Ken Behring, who's a billionaire who I came to know. And this guy, Ken Behring, even bought the Seattle Seahawks NFL football team. And he, the 737 jet, the 150 vintage cars, we know the story of these guys. Now, Ken got to age 80 and just was still feeling like, there's something missing. I don't know why, because if anybody had the American dream, he did. But it just didn't feel like he had it all there. And so he started a wheelchair foundation. And the reason he started this is he came to understand that mobility isn't just something for an individual that doesn't have it. In the third world, where there's no mobility, the whole family is actually locked down around this individual that they take turns carrying around. The whole family loses mobility. And a simple gift of a simple wheelchair can actually change that dynamic. And so he started a wheelchair foundation. Then from 80 to when he transitioned at age 92, this is what he did, is he flew around the world giving away wheelchairs. And he said, I found it. I found the thing that I couldn't quite get there with all of the riches, but I do now, that heart opening thing, that delicious life thing, I found it. So just another story in here. As you know, in the book, one of the things I share is try it. Most of us are doing this anyway with a parent or a neighbor or something. Just try doing it in a little more devoted way and just see, just notice, then pay careful attention to how you feel. Are you feeling better? We only want to do things where we feel better. If we follow our own still small voice, our own soul's calling, and we go to that station in life that we're called to and help whatever it is that we're being called to, my premise, which I'm even calling a promise, is that you will feel like, wow, there's something that is enriching my life here. Life is becoming more delicious.
Do you think we're also genetically predisposed to worship? Because people either worship a religious figure, an athlete, a celebrity, or something,
If this is something that has grown out of our legacy past, is worship. What the mystics share and Conversations with God shares is that deity, the divine, God, Jesus, Muhammad, whatever our worship is, that they're actually only wanting reverence, not worship. Reverence, where we are grateful, where we're saying thank you, where we're reaching out maybe through this mediumship thing, asking for advice and guidance and support. This is what the mediums into ears are going to, is they're pointing to reverence, not worship. Follow your own impulse toward the divine, is what they say. So whatever that might be. So our philosophy, which I've come back to, but I haven't really named it, so let me name it here in Humanities Team with Conscious Living, is actually anti-guru. Because our thing is, take everything, including all the things, Jeff, you and I are talking about, and just take them within if they seem like they might be something of value. And then just sit with it and create your own daily practice. Sit with these things we're sharing. See if they ring true for you. We go to our own inner sanctuary, anti-guru. It's we, internally, that decided where there's an interior thing happening. If it rings true, then do it, follow it. Why would you not? And if not, discard it. Just discard it and go on and do these other things that are ringing true for you. So, and the God of my understanding is actually, this is what she or he is inviting, is just go to your interior space. This whole thing, if we don't go within, we go without, that it's true. Make that time to go within, to call in, to invite the guidance, the support, etc. It'll always, even here, if people are feeling like, this is overwhelming, it's a fire hose, there's so many things, just go within. Just go within, following this program, and sit with it and say, help me to really kind of ferret out what are the things messages that I want to pay attention to, and then help me achieve those things. And you will get the guidance and you will get the support.
We've only met an hour ago, so obviously I don't know everything about what you're up to. But you seem, in my opinion, to be the perfect man to create some kind of program to influence people in Silicon Valley to make these huge conscious changes. Because the people in Silicon Valley have the money and the power to create products and create things, just like this guy who did this wheelchair foundation. Have you created anything, some kind of program to influence those people?
I'm going on a lot of business podcasts. So this isn't going in that particular direction, this particular show, but I am going on as a separate track, lots of business, including CEO and C-suite podcasts, where I'm sharing all of this and inviting it. One of the things we want to understand is, even though what I'm sharing, I believe is true with all of who I am, people that have invested themselves in becoming the CEO or high up in the C-suite, they're not going to easily let that go just because they read my book or they hear me talk once. There's some significant education to really get to where you kind of have that moment that I described, where you're sitting there in your own home saying, okay, who the heck am I? I'm going to live into that. That's where we got to get to, that self-identification moment, that self-actualized moment, where we've done enough education to where we sit with it, knowing full well that if we decide that we're something other, what I'm calling conscious living, we will live a completely different life. So, yes, in all the ways that I can, I'm reaching out to those people, and we'll continue to just have a dedicated focus on that track business, what we call conscious business. And I'm excited. Actually, the thought of going into Google, which I believe that day will come, and Facebook, and they do invite in speakers, and where I could talk about it. The thing that I think that I have here that's unique is there are a lot of people with these perspectives that I share, but not so many that were able to really live the adventure, where I was one of them. I lived that, I was in that chairman and CEO slot myself. And so where I can give that first person account, it does create a unique opportunity.
I totally agree that, you've lived that life and you have the connections and you have the authority behind what you say.
Yeah. Even back in the 1600s and before Galileo, he had his telescope, and he was the guy that said, at that time in the early 1600s, they believed the Earth was the center of the universe. They called it a geocentric understanding. And then he raised his hand, so to speak, started publishing research saying, it's not true that with my telescope, what I observe is we're actually in a solar system. We're not the center of the universe. We're revolving around a sun with other planets, and we're on the edge of the universe. We're not the center of the universe. Well, that was very scary. And science, the church and science didn't like that so much. And he was under house arrest to the end of his life. And the only reason he didn't die is he actually had to recant his research and say, I was just kidding. But the thing is once that research got out and there were other telescopes, other people were like, no, actually what he said was true. So in many ways, we're kind of now, it's sort of a Galileo moment in the sense that we don't have one man that'll do it for us. Now it's all of us. Many of your listeners maybe will be the ones too that'll say, it is a spiritual universe. Everything is energy, that we're actually designed as part of this larger body. The more we give ourselves away, the more we're in service, the better we'll feel. We have to all do that together with this big planet now, 8 billion people, to create the change that we're after. So, and that's really a lot of what my mission is with Humanities Team, is to support that work.
What's popular on YouTube lately is the notion that our realm that we live in here is a simulated reality or some type of matrix reality. What is your opinion on that?
Yeah, the only thing that is challenging for me in that is it can kind of make it sound a little bit of a game-like thing, and almost it doesn't matter because it's just, we're going to take the red pill and it'll kind of think this, and take the blue pill and it'll feel, or we'll think that. When in my understanding, life is a really, really precious thing. So what we decide, who we decide we are, how we decide that we're going to live while we're here, what we live out from the time we're born to the time that we transition, it's sacred. It's hugely important. Part of what this conscious living thing is we understand that everybody we come in contact with, even at the grocery store, they're on their own evolutionary journey, growing and coming into this Homo universalis and beyond. It's sacred. It's incredibly sacred. So the thing that I don't like about that is it might diminish this notion of sacred, of importance of every day, importance of every interaction that we have with people. That is this whole being in service thing is what really creates this delicious life and supports others and so on. And so I more try and go in the direction of talking about what all these leaders have shared back to antiquity that explain that story, and maybe invite people to this whole notion of a sacred universe, a sacred life, and living into it fully.
In your opinion, what are 3 ways that people can start changing humanity's future today?
Okay, so 3 things. Let me just even put a bonus in there. So first, educate. So education into conscious living. Now, my nonprofit Humanities Team, we have lots of free programs. So if you go to humanitiesteam.org, spelled with a Y, of course, there's no apostrophe and web address. And then at the top, it has programs. Pull down the free programs, and you'll see free programs in science and all the paranormal stuff. Go through some of these free programs. And then there are other programs if you're interested. So education, number one. Two, the embody and express, by all means, and I think you do this anyway, but live into these new understandings that you have about the divine and about life. That's where it all happens. That's the delicious thing. And then three is invite other people into it, engage others. We don't want to proselytize. You just actually push people away. So I don't ever want to proselytize, but invite people in to new understandings. Tell them what's working for you, how you're living a delicious life if it feels that way, and what you're still working on. We all have challenges too. So engage is the third one. So that's one on one level, something. On another level, the daily practice. So, and let me just build that out a little further. I talked about the daily practice of just intention, and then where we're metaphysical, actually living into the future. I also talked about the whole mediumship thing, where I use the Bless Me method to connect with people in the afterlife. That's one dimension of daily practice. There are other dimensions, living holistically. So other dimensions of this, where we go a bit further, is like I buy my clothes from a vendor that uses a lot of recycled ingredients, recycled bottles and things. I wasn't able to afford an electric car until last year. I had a big gas guzzler because I just couldn't afford to run out and buy one until recently. But the things we watch, the things we listen to, the food we eat, the water we drink, the sleep, all of these things we pay attention to when we're living holistically, to bring that in. And then the third is the Gandhi thing. Ultimately, it's about being the change. It's not enough for us to just kind of talk about it, and we'll push it away if we try and be the change in some perfect walk around in a loincloth. I don't think most of us are called to that. I'm not sure that's what we need to do today. That's what he needed to do back then. But there are things that we can do today in terms of listening better, being a more loving person, being more in service, maybe noticing when some of your clothes could even come from recycled ingredients. There's things we can do to more be the change. And let's do our best there as well. If we do all of these things, then yeah, we're well on our way to living this delicious life, Jeff, that you and I have been talking about.
Steve, you have the new book, you have the website. What else is going on that you want us to know about?
So, well, in the book, if you go to the anewuniversaldream.com, so the first 4 chapters are opened up, and so you can read those for free. It also tells you a little more about the book. And then one of the masterclasses that I've created called Conscious Leadership, which is a beautiful masterclass. We sell it for $2.99 in Humanities Team, and we give away the masterclass to people just by entering their receipt number when they buy the book. Amazon right now, it's trading off between $14.50 and $17, and other bookstores too. So anewuniversaldream.com. So make sure you get that free Conscious Leadership Masterclass if you buy the book. So that's one. Humanitiesteam.org, I've mentioned, the free programs there. There's a lot of other stuff there. We have a Global Oneness Summit that gets into all of this. It's free. All you do is enter your name and email address, and then we send you I think we have 46 panels this year. We broadcast in October, and many, many other things. So, and education is something I've brought back around a few times. So peruse the site, see if there's anything there that speaks to you. I think you'll, both of these things can kind of slingshot you in terms of if any of this is exciting, is interesting, is calling to you, check these things out, because I think they could kind of slingshot you on this journey.
Steve, after watching this video, people may want to reach out to you and ask you questions. Are you open to that? And if so, how should they do that?
You bet. Yeah. Happy to talk to people. So I'll leave my email address. I have an assistant that sometimes responds to email for me, but my email address is Steve, Steve, Farrell, Farrell at humanitiesteam.org. And that's just one word, Humanities Team with a Y, not IES, humanitiesteam.org.
Before we wrap it up, can you leave us with one last positive message?
Yes, absolutely. My positive message is, boy, don't miss this opportunity. I mean, I'm just speaking heart to heart to your listeners. What we're talking about is, in a sense, moving our ladder from one wall where we kind of understood the world one way to another wall where we understand the world around us in a different way. Where we do that, and we do it because we sat with it in our inner sanctuary. We know it's true for us, the things that we're talking about. Where you take the time to do these things, educate yourself, embody and express it, live into it. When you pass into the afterlife, I promise you, you will see and feel the fullness of this. That's what the afterlife is. No reason to wait till the afterlife to do it. And the earth is practically screaming to us right now. A few times during this program, I've said we're maybe all being called to conscious living the way I was when I was in Silicon Valley there in the 90s. I think maybe we're all being called to it. It's a beautiful way to live. And trust yourself, trust your own inner voice, tune out that worldly noise that might want to tell you something different. It's a beautiful journey to live into. And I think that, boy, if I have any influence and can be help support just through what this program or programs that we have in Humanities Team, people that go off on this conscious journey, my life's going to be well lived because I'll know I've helped people. And I think ultimately that's why we're all here, is actually to help people.
Steve, thank you for your message, and thank you again for being my guest.
Been my pleasure, Jeff. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.